This is the 2025 Honda CB1000 Hornet SP, one of, if not the most anticipated new bike on the market this year.
As you can imagine, I've been very much looking forward to getting hold of this one, so let's take it out for a spin. We've actually got a nice sunny day for once, and I'll tell you my 8 key favourite things about it.
But before we get on the road, a massive thanks to Kalimoto for supporting the channel and making videos like this one possible. Their brilliant navigation app is motorcycle specific, built with their own in-house algorithm that seeks out the best biking roads so you never have to ride a boring straight one again. It's the perfect way to seek out new routes when you're out on a tour, but also to mix up your regular rides back home. So do check out the link down in the description below for more information, and you'll also find down there a couple of codes specifically for our viewers. One gets you a free trial, and the other a discount if you do decide to take out one of their premium memberships.
Alright, number one, you know, the big thing about this bike is the price and just how good value for money it is. The standard CB1000 Hornet starts at £8,999, whereas this up-spec, and I'd argue slightly more desirable SP version, is still under 10 grand at £9,999.
Now, if you typically finance your bikes, that's a super sweet naked for about £119 a month on PCP, with just over a couple of grand as a deposit. But I think it's when you look at the rest of the fast naked market that it really shows just how good the price is. At the more premium end of the spectrum, with the likes of the Speed Triple, the Super Duke, the ZH2 or a Street Fighter V4, well, they go from around 17 grand to well over 20. An MT10 and BMW S1000R are around the 14 grand mark, and if you're more so shopping by price bracket, well, a Z900, a GSX S1000 and MT09 all still cost a little bit more than the Hornet, and in the case of the Kawasaki and Yamaha, they make a fair bit less power.
Now, I think by today's ridiculous standards, 150 or 155 horsepower might not sound like a great deal, but really, if most of us are honest, on the public road, it's absolutely more than enough. Now, this engine is based upon an old Fireblade, 2017 I believe, just with a bit more of a mid-rangey tune to make it more appropriate for road riding, but still, if you stick it in the sport mode, so you've got 5 modes, 2 custom, rain, road and sport, but in sport, the throttle response is so direct, even in the mid-range, and you've got that very instantaneous, connected feeling where you're getting exactly, in terms of speed and acceleration, what you're putting in from the small adjustments from the throttle. So yeah, a Street Fighter V4 or a ZH2 or a Super Duke, it is not, but it still doesn't take long before the scenery becomes a blur and your brain starts to go a bit mushy. Woo! Oh my goodness. It would probably be a bit unwise to show you what this bike can actually do on a public YouTube video, but suffice to say, in terms of speed, it's not lacking.
It's worth adding that this SP version gets a few more horsepower than the standard bike, owing to an exhaust control valve that opens at about 5,500 RPM and results in a couple more Nm of peak torque and about 5 more horsepower. Truth be told though, the standard bike probably still has enough pep anyway, and realistically, many owners will probably ditch the standard silencer.
Now, normally I'd probably say I'm the biggest fan of like a V4 in terms of the sound, or maybe a V-twin or something like Yamaha's CP4, the cross-plane inline 4. But I'd still say, when I first started this bike up, it did put a rather big grin on my face. Despite the size of that exhaust, look, it is absolutely massive. It still has a bit of a rasp to it, a bark to it, and I think also that exhaust control valve on this SP version certainly helps. When the revs get up, it only gets better and it starts to breathe a little bit freer. Then you got the standard fit quickshifter. It's 195 quid on the standard bike. It comes fitted as standard on this SP version, and that also gives you that lovely crisp sound under acceleration and also when you're blipping back down the box. This one would only get better, I guess, with a freer flowing exhaust. There is an SC Project accessory as well. I'm not sure if that's any better, but even a standard, it's a nice sounding bike.
Now, number 4 for me is the riding position, which feels manageable and comfortable, but still assertive enough to wring the bike's neck. You see, the seat height of 809mm is relatively low for this class, so it's super easy to get on with for general daily riding, but also not so low that you feel too sat down with all your weight over the back. The pegs are a little bit sporty but not too cramped, and I do like the bar position too. You're over the front a bit, in a position that feels ready to really get stuck in. I'm 5'9" or 175 centimeters for your reference, and for me, it's an easy enough reach down to the floor.
Now, one of the things that separates this SP model from the standard CB1000 Hornet is the brakes. You get slightly, well, more than slightly better calipers up front with some Brembo style emmers, which are the sort of exotic equipment that you'd expect to find on a bike at a much higher price point. That's as opposed to the Nissin 4-pot radial calipers on the standard bike. And so what you do have is plenty of braking power and plenty of feel at the lever. Now, if you were going to pay more for something that you'd class as like a super naked or even stuff in the sort of 13, 14, 15 grand range, you might expect an upgrade to the lever and master cylinder too. You might get something that's ratio adjustment as well, so you can dial in the feel of the braking power. Whereas this, you know, it's a little bit more simple, let's say, but it absolutely still does the job. And I'd say, given what you're paying for this bike, yeah, the braking, you know, I'd say is above expectations.
Another particularly strong point of the SP is the suspension. With the same Showa 41mm upside-down separate function big piston fork as the standard bike with full adjustability, but also an upgraded Öhlins TTX36 shock, again fully adjustable, whereas the standard bike's Showa shock is just preload and rebound. I think the best thing I can say about the suspension is there's not much to say about it. The ride isn't too harsh, but it doesn't feel too soft into, through and out of corners, and so for a quick road bike it feels just about spot on.
Now I think I'd have to put the looks down as another big strength of this bike, and although, you know, when you're up close to it, it's not got that luxurious level of finish that you'll find up at the sort of 20 grand end of the naked market, you know, it still has a nice overall aggressive stance to it. It lives up to the Hornet name more than perhaps the 750 did, and I think, yeah, generally it's fair to say it's a rather nice looking bike. Now, the standard version comes in either white, grey or red. This SP model is only available in black, but it does have a certain lift to it with some of the gold accents. So the anodization on the fork, the gold paint on the wheels, and also the little graphics on the side and the 1000 graphics on the tail section there. So certainly, visually, the SP is the one that has the more exciting looks, I'd say. But even the standard bike, you know, I think I'd be fairly happy with it. Really, what I like about both, though, is the front end with that very aggressive headlight. I know it looks a bit like a Ducati Street Fighter V4. Perhaps they took some inspiration from there, but I wouldn't say that's by any means a bad thing. And I also think they've done a nice job at the rear too. I like the pointy wasp sting tail light, and even the license plate holder with those little fins sticking out actually looks pretty good.
Onto the tech, and while sometimes more is better, it feels like Honda got this one right in the balance of features versus affordability. You've got the 5 riding modes, ABS, traction control with integrated wheelie control, engine braking control, some connectivity, but it still doesn't really feel like they've added any more than you'd need to just go out and have a good time. Some bikes will have a bigger, more swish-looking dash, fancier switchgear, loads of lean-sensitive rider aids with all manner of customizability, but this bike feels a little more kind of utilitarian in the cockpit and tech, and I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way.
To me, this bike feels a little bit like Honda doing exactly what people say in YouTube comments, where they say, why don't they just take an older, powerful Fireblade engine, stick it in a naked bike, good brakes, good suspension, but I don't really want loads of rider aids and tech that I never really want to use. It's kind of got a slightly old school mentality, and it's simple, but just hits a really good price point. From what I can tell, it's doing the trick as well. Speaking to the guys at Fowler's in Bristol who sell the Hondas there, I believe these SPs are selling like hotcakes. A lot of the standard bikes are sold as well. And so really, it's hard to see that changing in the near future. I think they're going to sell boatloads of them until perhaps another manufacturer comes up with something that's similarly exciting and similarly exceptional value for money. But that's a pretty flipping tall task. And so it seems like Honda are probably onto a bit of a winner for at least for the medium term.
So is it now the absolute king of the naked segment? Well, if you're looking for out-and-out top-end performance and all the latest goodies, then potentially not. But if you want something that's reasonably priced and also ridiculously quick, then there isn't really much out there that gets even close. So look, if you're already thinking of buying one, then it's very hard not to recommend to do so. But at very least, take one for a demo and see for yourself.
As always, I'd love to know what you think of this bike, so do let me know down in the comments below. And I'll also leave on the screen now our pick of the other best new nakeds for 2025, so you can give it a watch if you haven't already. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews like this right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next video.